There's a specific moment when a player decides you're worth keeping around instead of using once and moving on, and it happens in the first 10 minutes of meeting you. Almost no guy catches it because it doesn't look like a red flag. It looks like her being really, really into you. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact tells that show up before the ghosting, before the sudden busy texts, before you find out you were never the only one. I spent months pulling apart real psychology research and comparing notes with guys who got burned to figure out what actually gives her away early, not 6 weeks in when you're already attached. So let's get into it. Here's the part that messes with most guys' heads. You think a player looks like a player, cold, calculated, obvious, but that's not how the good ones work. The ones who really get you look like the warmest, most genuine person in the room. That's the whole trap. So if you're sitting there thinking, I'd know if she was playing me, hold on to that thought, because that exact confidence is what gets guys hooked the hardest. Psychologists have a name for the traits that make someone dangerously good at this. It's called the dark triad. 3 personality traits researchers have studied for years: narcissism, manipulation, and the total lack of guilt about using people. And here's the part that should worry you. People high in these traits aren't awkward or shifty in the first meeting. Research on first impressions has actually found they often come across as more likable and more attractive right out of the gate, not less. So your gut isn't broken. It's just not built to catch this in the first 10 minutes. Now, if you want the fast track on reading exactly what she's thinking before you're 6 weeks deep and blindsided, there's a book that breaks this down even further called The Truth Detector. Links first in the description if you want to skip ahead. So think about the last time someone seemed a little too smooth, a little too perfect, right out of the gate. Maybe you brushed it off. Maybe it worked out fine, but maybe it didn't, and you're still not totally sure why. This is the part that took me way too long to figure out myself. Players don't lie about big things first. They lie about the small ones, the ones you never think to check. Where she was last night, who that text was from, why she went quiet for 2 days and came back like nothing happened. One lie alone means nothing, but watch what happens when you start counting them. 1 lie is nothing, 2 is a coincidence, but 3, 4, 5 all clustered around the same 3-week window, that's not bad memory. That's a pattern. And patterns are the whole game here, because a player isn't lying to hurt you. She's managing you, keeping you exactly informed enough to stay calm and exactly in the dark enough to stay useful. So here's the first real sign, and it's gonna feel backwards at first. Watch how fast she gives you access to her life, not her body, her life, her actual daily world. A woman who's genuinely building something with you starts looping you in without even thinking about it. She mentions her coworker drama unprompted. She sends you a dumb meme at 2 p.m. on a random Tuesday for no reason at all. She lets you see the boring, unglamorous parts of her day because she stopped managing an image around you. She's just living near you now. A player does the opposite, but she does it so smoothly you won't catch it unless you're specifically looking. She keeps the relationship in a beautiful little box. Incredible dates, great texts, deep conversations that go until 1 a.m. But months in, you'll notice you don't actually know her friends' names. You've never met a single person from her life. You couldn't describe what her Tuesday afternoons look like because she's never once let you in on one. It's not that she's hiding a body in the basement, it's that access is currency, and she's not spending it on you until she's confirmed you're worth the investment. I lived this one myself a few years back. 4 months into something that felt like it had actual weight to it, texting constantly, she told me she loved me by month 2, and the chemistry felt like the kind of thing you can't fake even if you tried. But one night I sat with it for a second and realized something that hit me harder than it should have. I'd never once been to her apartment. Every date happened at my place or some restaurant sitting exactly halfway between us that neither of us had any real connection to. 4 months in, and I'd never met a single friend of hers, never seen where she actually lived, never been looped into one ordinary Tuesday of her life. I'd basically been dating a highlight reel with incredible production value. So when she went quiet the same week, a new guy started showing up in her Instagram stories. It wasn't some random betrayal out of nowhere. It was the ending that had already been written back in week 1. I just didn't have the vocabulary yet to read it. But here's a quick gut check for you, and I want you to actually answer it instead of skimming past. Think about the person you're seeing right now, or the last one who left you confused. Could you name 3 people in her actual life? Could you describe what her Wednesday looks like without her telling you first? If you're drawing a blank, that's not proof of anything on its own, but it's worth sitting with, because genuine interest and controlled interest look almost identical from the outside. The only difference is what's happening behind the curtain. Now, this next sign is the one most guys get completely backwards, and it's usually the one that shows up right before the drop-off, right in the window where everything feels like it's going great. It has to do with how fast she matches your energy compared to how fast she matches your effort. And once you see the gap between the two, you cannot unsee it. Energy is easy to fake. Energy is just enthusiasm in the moment. The laugh at the right time, the compliment landed perfectly, the "I've never met anyone like you" line delivered exactly on beat. A player can match your energy instantly because it costs nothing. It's a performance, and performances are cheap to produce on demand. Effort is different. Effort is what happens when it's actually inconvenient. Effort is driving 40 minutes after a long shift because you mentioned you had a rough day. Effort is remembering the small detail from 3 conversations ago without being reminded. Effort compounds over time when the interest is real, because a genuine connection wants to invest more as it goes, not less. But here's the twist that catches guys off guard. A player's effort peaks early and flatlines hard, while her energy stays high the entire time. So you're still getting the same warmth, the same good morning text, the same eye contact across the table. But if you actually map out what she's doing for you against what she's saying to you, there's a gap. And that gap only gets wider the longer nobody's looking for it. Researchers who study manipulation have a name for the early version of this: love bombing, an intense, fast rush of attention and affection early on that isn't matched by consistent action later. It's not a clinical diagnosis, but it's a documented pattern in how manipulative dynamics tend to open. It feels like fate in the moment. It's designed to feel like fate, because if you're overwhelmed by how good it feels early, you stop doing the quiet math on whether her actions are actually keeping pace with her words. So here's a question worth sitting with tonight. No need to answer it out loud. Just be honest with yourself. Think about the last few weeks with her. Is she doing more for you now than she was in week 1? Or is she just saying more? Because those are 2 completely different relationships wearing the exact same face, and only one of them survives contact with a slow week, a bad mood, or another guy showing up with better timing. Think about what that actually looks like from the outside. 2 guys, same week, same girl, on paper. One of them gets a good morning text and a heart eyes reaction to his gym selfie. The other gets that same text, plus she remembered his interview was that morning and asked how it went before he even brought it up. Same energy on the surface, completely different level of effort underneath it, and if you're only tracking the first guy's experience, you'll swear you're both getting the same relationship. You're not. One of you is getting attention, the other is getting invested in. Before we get to the sign that seals all of this together, there's one more pattern worth knowing, because it's the one that fools guys who think they're too smart to fall for anything. It's called mirroring, and psychologists who study rapport and persuasion have documented it for decades. People naturally sync up their body language, tone, and even opinions with someone they're trying to build fast trust with. Salespeople use it, negotiators use it, and so does a woman who's decided you're worth the effort of feeling like her soulmate within a week of meeting you. It shows up as suspicious, instant compatibility. She loves the same obscure show you do. She's always wanted to try the exact hobby you just mentioned. She agrees with opinions she couldn't have possibly held 2 minutes before you stated them. On its own, shared interest is a great sign, but when every single opinion lines up, when there's zero friction anywhere in the relationship this early, that's not chemistry, that's calibration. Real compatibility has texture. It has a few disagreements, a few "actually I see it differently" moments, because 2 whole people rarely agree on everything by date 3. A total absence of friction that early isn't a green flag, it's usually a mirror. This is exactly the problem most guys come to a video like this hoping to solve. And honestly, spotting these signs is only half the fight. The harder part is reading them in real time while you're in the middle of it, while your judgment is already compromised because you like her. That's the entire reason I put together the truth detector. It walks you through exactly how to read what she's actually thinking underneath what she's saying, so you catch this in week 2 instead of realizing it in month 4 when you're already attached. It's the fast path through everything I'm laying out here. Links are still first in the description if you want to go deeper right now. But let's say you've noticed the gap. Effort's flat, energy's high, access is limited, and the compatibility feels suspiciously frictionless. Don't panic yet, because there's one more sign, and it's the one that actually seals it. It's not about what she does for you, it's about what she does when she doesn't think you're paying attention at all. Run this scene forward in your head for a second. You're out with her, and the waiter gets her order wrong. Nothing major, just the wrong sauce, wrong side. Watch what happens in that exact second, because that's the tell almost nobody thinks to look for. Is she kind to someone who can't do a single thing for her, or does something colder flash across her face for half a second before she catches herself and turns the smile back toward you? Here's why this matters more than anything she ever says directly to you. Every word aimed at your face has a purpose behind it, so of course it sounds good. But how she treats a waiter, a bartender, a rideshare driver, that's unmanaged behavior. That's the version of her that exists when there's nothing to gain from the performance. And if that version is colder, sharper, or more dismissive than the version sitting across from you, you're not seeing her personality in those moments with you. You're seeing a performance, and performances only run for an audience that matters to the performer. I watched this one play out in real time with a close friend of mine, and I was actually in the room for the moment that gave it away. 2 months into seeing someone he described as almost too easy, attentive, affectionate, always asking about his day right down to the small details, then her phone rang, her sister, and the whole tone of her voice dropped in about half a second, dismissive, mocking, cutting her sister off mid-sentence, then hanging up and sliding right back into the warm version of herself, like nothing had happened. He laughed it off and called it normal sibling stuff. I remember thinking in the moment, that's not normal sibling stuff, that's a preview screening. 3 weeks later, that exact same dismissiveness landed on him, out of nowhere, the second he stopped being convenient for her weekend plans. He'd watched the trailer sitting right next to me on his couch, and he still mistook it for a completely different movie. So here's your gut check for this one. Think back to the last person you dated, and think about how she talked about her ex. Not the sanitized version she gave you for your benefit, the actual tone underneath it. Bitter, dismissive, or cruel about someone she used to love is rarely a one-time thing, because how someone discusses their past relationships is usually a live preview of how they will eventually discuss you to the next guy. This next part's going to annoy you a little, and that's fine, because it flips something most guys walk around assuming without ever questioning it. You'd think the manipulative ones are cold all the time, but researchers who study these personality patterns have found something closer to the opposite. The people best at this are often warm, charming, and genuinely fun to be around the majority of the time. The coldness only leaks out in these tiny cracks. The waiter moment, the sister phone call, the half-second flicker before the smile snaps back into place. That's exactly what makes it so hard to catch. You're not looking for a villain twirling a mustache. You're looking for a 2-second gap between two performances running back to back. There's one more layer worth adding to all of this, and it's subtle enough that most guys never think to check it at all. Pay attention to how she reacts when something good happens to you, not to her. You get a promotion, you hit a personal goal, someone else compliments you right in front of her. Real interest lights up at your wins almost involuntarily, because when someone's actually invested in you, your good news feels like a small win for them too. But watch closely for the flicker instead of the smile. A slight pause before the congratulations. A quick pivot back to something about her. A compliment that somehow turns into a comparison. This lines up with something researchers have found again and again when studying people high in narcissistic traits. They tend to experience other people's success as a kind of quiet threat, especially from someone they're supposed to be closest to, because it briefly knocks them out of the center of attention. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a half second of stillness before the reaction catches up, and by the time she says, "That's amazing, babe," the pause already told you what her first, real, unmanaged reaction was. This one's easy to miss because the recovery is usually so fast and so smooth, but if you start watching for that half-second delay, the next time you share good news, you'll be surprised how often it's actually there. So let's bring this together, because by now you've got 4 things stacked on top of each other. Controlled access to her actual life, energy that consistently outpaces effort, compatibility so frictionless it starts to feel manufactured, and a colder version of her that only surfaces when she doesn't think anyone's grading the performance. Any single one of these on its own could be nothing. A bad day, a shy personality, a rough relationship with a sibling. But when 2 or 3 of them cluster together in the same person, that's not bad luck. That's a pattern with your name already written on it. And look, catching this in real time is genuinely hard, because attraction quietly switches off the part of your brain that's supposed to be running this exact checklist. That's the specific gap the truth detector was built to close. It gives you the actual questions to ask and the responses to watch for, so you're not relying on gut feeling alone the next time your judgment's compromised by how good someone feels to be around. Worth a look before the next one. Links first in the description whenever you're ready for it. Screenshot the 4 signs if that's easier than trying to remember them. Next time you're 3 weeks into something that feels a little too good to be true, run her through the list quietly in your head. Watch the waiter interaction. Watch the effort curve against the energy. Watch how much of her actual life you're being let into. And drop in the comments, what's the one detail that tipped you off too late in your own story? I genuinely like to read them. Here's the part that's hard to hear, so I'll say it plainly. You were never going to catch this by getting cleverer about texting patterns or waiting 3 days to reply. You catch it by watching what she does the moment nothing's on the line, because that's the only version of anyone that isn't for sale. You don't avoid getting played by finding someone who could never do it to you. You avoid it by becoming the guy who notices the crack in the performance before he's already too deep in to walk away from it.